It started like any other case. A quiet neighborhood. A break-in. But nothing was stolen. No damage. Just one thing left on the kitchen table. A photograph. Of a child. No fingerprints. No explanation. No one knew who she was. Then, it happened again. Different house. This time it wasn't a photo. It was something even stranger. And for Detective Tom Halbridge, it would be the first clue in a mystery that would unravel everything. Like and subscribe if you believe even the quietest clues deserve to be followed. And if you've ever had to fight for someone no one else would, tell us in the comments. We read every one. Tom Halbridge had been with the city police department for nearly 15 years. He prided himself on a calm demeanor and a steady hand, traits that helped him wade through the chaos of homicides, thefts, narcotics busts, and every sort of criminal mischief. Yet that year, nothing had prepared him for what he would uncover, an unexpected case that began with a single photograph. He had been working a quiet shift when he received a dispatch call about a break-in on Maplewood Lane. The address belonged to an elderly couple, the Pattersons. According to the report, they had come home to find their front door unlocked, though there was no sign of forced entry. Even stranger, nothing seemed stolen or disturbed. The only anomaly was a Polaroid photo of a little girl, timestamp 2014, left in plain view on their kitchen table. Puzzled, Tom drove to the scene. The Patterson house, like many on that street, was modest but well kept. Flowers lined the walkway, and a wind chime tinkled in the gentle afternoon breeze. Inside, Mrs. Patterson explained in a quavering voice that they had only been gone a couple of hours to visit friends. They returned to find the door unlocked. Unusual because Mr. Patterson was meticulous about locking up. Tom noted the door showed no damage. There was no sign of rummaging in the house, and the Pattersons insisted nothing was missing. On the kitchen table lay the Polaroid in a sealed evidence bag, courtesy of the patrol officer who'd arrived first. Tom took a look at the image, a bright-eyed girl, maybe 6 or 7, with curly hair and a shy smile. Behind her in the photograph, he caught a glimpse of a mural, stars and planets painted against a dark background. The timestamp at the bottom read 2014, but the ink was slightly smeared and the edges were yellowed. The Pattersons recognized neither the girl nor the mural. Tom spoke to them gently, trying to ease their nerves. "Are you sure you haven't seen this child before? Possibly a relative, a neighbor's daughter?" Mrs. Patterson shook her head. "No, Detective, we don't have grandchildren and we're friendly with our neighbors, but no one around here has a little girl who looks like that." Tom studied the image again. The child's eyes were wide, as though startled or unsure. He couldn't place the mural, but it reminded him of a children's center or maybe a daycare. The call ended with no immediate leads, so Tom bagged the photo as evidence. On paper, it was the strangest burglary he'd ever seen. Something left behind, nothing taken. The Pattersons were unnerved, but there was no physical harm, no sign of theft. After dusting for prints and coming up with little more than smudges, he filed his report. Officially, the case was open, but with no clear suspect or victim. Tom felt that nagging itch of incompleteness when he drove away. He didn't have much time to dwell on it. The precinct bustled with a steady flow of calls, routine drug arrests, domestic disputes, noise complaints. But 2 weeks later, another break-in cropped up that grabbed Tom's attention. The homeowner, a woman named Cynthia Wright, found her home exactly as she had left it, except for a small child's bracelet placed carefully on her living room coffee table. The bracelet had the name Marie engraved on a tiny metal charm. Like the Pattersons, Ms. Wright had no children and no memory of leaving her home unlocked. Again, no forced entry, nothing missing, just that bracelet left as though it were a calling card. When Tom interviewed Ms. Wright, she was flustered and confused. "I don't know a Marie," she insisted. "I can't imagine how anyone got inside without breaking a window or forcing a door." Tom's curiosity flared. He recalled the Polaroid from the Patterson case. At first glance, a random child's item left in a house might be a prank or the work of a trespasser playing games. But was it connected to that earlier incident? Tom examined the bracelet carefully. It was scuffed, as though it had been worn for some time. On instinct, Tom checked the missing person database for a child named Marie. Nothing active came up. Back at the station, he spread out the Polaroid and the bracelet on his desk. They looked innocuous enough. A simple photo, a piece of children's jewelry. Yet the possibility that these were part of a pattern refused to leave his mind. He talked with Angela Friedman, a fellow detective who joined the force a few years earlier. She was known for an analytical mind and a knack for spotting obscure connections. Angela looked at the items, brow furrowed. "Maybe it's some kind of message," she said. Leaving behind personal objects could be a clue or a cry for help. Tom nodded. I've got a nagging sense this is bigger than 2 random break-ins. He asked Angela to help him search the precinct's archives. They spent late nights combing through old burglary files, focusing on cases where nothing was taken but a child-related object was found. At first, Tom expected to see just a handful of coincidences. Instead, they uncovered dozens of such break-ins scattered across multiple neighborhoods, going back several years. A stuffed bear left in a foyer, a small baby shoe placed on a kitchen counter, a faded drawing pinned to a front door. Every time, the homeowners had no idea how or why these items appeared. Nearly all the reports ended unsolved. Tom pinned these incidents on a large corkboard in a spare office, marking each location with a pushpin. A distinct cluster formed in the suburban sprawl around the city. Next, he began looking for common threads between the homes that were targeted. Many had no direct connection, but in some cases, the houses had once been used as temporary foster placements. Others had residents who were tangentially involved in child welfare, maybe a retired social worker or a volunteer. It was tenuous but enough to keep Tom's curiosity stoked. Then Tom recalled the name on the bracelet, Marie. Something about it felt uncomfortably familiar. He leafed through his mental files, searching for the significance. Suddenly, a memory sparked. His sister's daughter had been named Marie. He hadn't seen the girl in years, not since his sister died in a car accident in 2013. In the aftermath, Child Services placed Marie in foster care. Tom was told she had been adopted soon after. He remembered wanting to stay in contact, but the system was a labyrinth. He had asked around, tried to follow up, but the official line was always that Marie was well adjusted in a new family. Grief and the demands of his job let that trail grow cold. Now seeing that name again rattled him. He began searching the foster placement records, focusing on the name Marie Halbridge. Sure enough, he found the old file. Marie had been placed in a short-term children's center called Brookpine, pending adoption in late 2013. Tom remembered Brookpine vaguely. It had been shut down in 2015 after allegations of abuse. At the time, he assumed Marie had been transferred or was successfully adopted. But looking now at the digital logs, he noticed something alarming. The record simply ended with no final adoptive family listed, no follow-up documents. It was as though she disappeared from the system. The same was true of other children in Brookpine's roster, many marked reunified or successfully placed, yet with no verifying records. He rubbed his temples, a hollow feeling settling in his chest. Had the system lost track of Marie? Could she be one of the children behind these strange break-ins? That seemed far-fetched. He didn't see how a teenager could orchestrate leaving random items in suburban homes without leaving more evidence. But maybe someone else was trying to get the police's attention about these missing kids. He dug deeper into Brookpine's archives, discovering that over 20 children had vanished from the official record after the facility shut down. Most were listed as reunified with family, but no addresses or court records confirmed it. One name, Carrie Maddox, appeared repeatedly as the caseworker who signed the paperwork. Another quick search revealed that Carrie left her job shortly after Brookpine's closure. She had no current address on file, just a post office box that was long inactive. Angela joined him in the musty basement of the precinct, sifting through boxes of older files that had not been fully digitized. They discovered references to suspicious placements overseen by Carrie. Some families recalled Carrie arriving with only a partial file or forging signatures. Others never saw Carrie again after an initial visit. The deeper Tom and Angela went, the more it looked like a huge gap in oversight. Tom pressed on, determined. He also recalled the mural from the Polaroid, The Stars and Planets. He found an old newspaper photo of Brookpine's hallway, which indeed featured a large planetary mural. The girl in the Polaroid must have been a Brookpine resident. Could she be Marie? Or another missing child? Tom wasn't certain. But an undeniable pattern formed. Break-ins leaving child-related items, many connected to fosters from Brookpine. The name Marie on the bracelet. The partial memory of his own niece's disappearance in the system. He decided to run the Polaroid through the department's enhancement software. The lab tech adjusted the contrast, revealing subtle details in the background, peeling paint, the shape of a classroom door. It was unmistakably Brookpine's corridor. The date on the Polaroid, 2014, matched the time when that facility was active. Whoever left that photo in the Patterson kitchen wanted to point Tom, or any detective, toward Brookpine. The question was, who? Late one night, after another fruitless search for leads, Tom slumped at his desk. He stared at a map pinned to the corkboard. Each pushpin represented a break-in where a child's item was left behind. At the center of that cluster was Brookpine, closed and discredited, overshadowed by allegations of abuse. Tom felt a simmering anger. So many children had apparently fallen through the cracks, including his niece. He realized that ignoring it was no longer an option. He might have let the official story quell him before, but not this time. Not after seeing that bracelet engraved with Marie. He began cold calling anyone linked to Brookpine. Former employees, volunteers, even foster families who'd accepted children from the center. Some calls ended abruptly. People claimed ignorance or refused to speak. Others described Carrie Maddox as an idealistic caseworker who believed the system was broken. She had grown increasingly radical, ranting that conventional placements only led children into more trauma. Then she vanished. Among the dusty old forms, Tom discovered a burner address tied to Carrie's driver's license. It led to a shabby basement apartment in a rundown part of town. He took Angela there one rainy afternoon, feeling a knot in his stomach. The apartment was empty, the door cheaply locked. Using a warrant for probable cause, since it was connected to suspicious missing child records, they gained access. The space smelled of mildew. A single battered couch, a broken lamp, nothing of value. But in the bedroom closet, Tom found a locked desk drawer, pried it open, and froze at what he saw inside. Photographs of children scrawled with their first names or initials. Some photos matched the Polaroid style, presumably from Brookpine. Maps of rural properties dotted with pushpins. And in the back was a small journal. Tom flipped through the journal, noticing two distinct handwritings. The first belonged to an adult, likely Carrie, detailing visits to fosters, noting alleged mistreatment, complaining about bureaucratic failures. Then the handwriting switched to larger, uneven letters, possibly a child's. One line struck Tom like a blow to the gut. "Don't forget Marie." He stared at those words in silence. Angela placed a hand on his shoulder, sensing his turmoil. He hadn't seen his niece in years, and now he feared she might be among these missing kids, swallowed by some vigilante caretaker's twisted plan. They gathered the evidence, locked it in the precinct's safe. Over the next weeks, Tom uncovered repeated references to a boy named Mason in Carrie's notes. He was described as uncooperative, fearful, and eventually absconded. Cross-referencing old child services data turned up a Mason G, who had once lived at Brookpine. The official file listed him as successfully placed. But there was no further trace. Tom theorized that Mason might have escaped not just the foster system, but also Carrie's questionable scheme. If so, maybe he was the one breaking into homes, leaving behind items to draw attention. But how to find him? He posted discreet notices at local shelters, quietly asking if anyone had seen a teenage runaway named Mason. Most leads fizzled, but eventually, a volunteer at a youth drop-in center mentioned a boy who fit Mason's description. A tall, lanky teen with wary eyes, drifting from place to place. The volunteer said the boy asked about missing kids and rummaged through old newspaper archives. Then he vanished again. Tom began to suspect that Mason was staging these break-ins as a desperate attempt to force the police to take notice. If Mason was indeed the culprit, Tom admired the courage behind it. But if Mason was right, that children from Brookpine were still being held somewhere, then time was critical. Tom couldn't let them vanish again. He needed to find Mason, earn his trust, and see if Marie was among the missing. The next break in the case came one night when Tom was working late, poring over the puzzle of addresses pinned on his corkboard. The station was quiet, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. As he massaged his temples, his desk phone rang. The voice on the other end was guarded, tense. "I hear you're looking for me," the caller said. Tom felt a jolt. It had to be Mason. The boy's tone was low, but Tom heard the quiver in it. Tom immediately kept his voice calm. "Yes, Mason? I want to help. If you know anything about these missing kids from Brookpine." "How do I know you won't just shut me down?" Mason asked, suspicion heavy in his voice. Tom inhaled, choosing his words carefully. "I'm not here to shut you down. I'm Detective Halbridge. One of those kids is my niece, Marie Halbridge. I think Carrie Maddox took her." Silence crackled on the line. Then Mason exhaled. "Marie, she's still alive. But I don't know for how much longer. Carrie keeps them hidden in a farmhouse in Oregon. She says she's saving them from the system, but it's like a prison." Tom's pulse raced, relief and dread colliding. "I need that location, Mason. I need to rescue them, my niece and anyone else with her. Work with me." Mason hesitated, then said he'd meet Tom in person, but only at a neutral location away from the precinct. They arranged to meet at a diner off the highway the next day. Tom promised to come alone, though he discreetly informed Angela to stay on standby in case anything went wrong. The next afternoon, Tom parked by the diner, scanning the parking lot for a lanky teen. Sure enough, a boy who looked about 16 or 17 lingered near the entrance, hood pulled up, eyes darting nervously. Tom approached slowly, hands raised to show he meant no threat. Mason eyed him warily but followed him into a corner booth inside the nearly empty diner. Over coffee, Mason revealed a harrowing story. He had been placed in Brookpine at age 9 after bouncing between foster homes. At first, Carrie seemed kind, telling him the system was broken and that she'd protect him and others. But once Brookpine shut down, she took them to remote locations, forging documents so no one would look for them. Some kids liked her because she was better than the abusive fosters they knew, Mason said, voice trembling. But she wouldn't let us leave. She said the outside world would hurt us again. She kept moving us around with no phones, no IDs. Mason escaped one night a few years earlier, after overhearing Carrie mention moving them to an even more isolated farmhouse. He'd survived on the streets, drifting from shelter to shelter, trying to get someone, anyone, to care about what Carrie was doing. That's when I started leaving those items in fancy homes, he said. I knew the police would eventually notice the pattern. I hoped they'd connect it to Brookpine. I knew if I went straight to child services, they'd ignore me. He paused, eyes flicking up. The bracelet with Marie on it? That's really hers. Tom felt a lump in his throat. Where is she now? Is she safe? Mason shrugged. Safe is relative. She's alive. She's around 15 now. Carrie keeps her in a farmhouse near the Oregon coast. No mailbox, no internet. She's got 2 younger kids there too, siblings from some failed foster situation. They call themselves a family, but it's messed up. Carrie controls everything. A coil of anger and worry tightened in Tom's chest. He asked for an address, but Mason explained there was none. He pulled out a wrinkled hand-drawn map showing back roads and farmland. If you follow these directions, you'll find it, he said. But be careful. Carrie has at least 1 armed guard, and she's paranoid about anyone discovering the kids. Tom thanked him. I want to take a team in and rescue them, he said. But I need hard evidence. Will you testify to what you know? Mason looked torn, fear etched in his eyes. I'll give you the map. But I don't want to get hauled back into the system. I'm 17 now. I've got no ID, no official record. I don't trust them. I'd rather disappear. Tom nodded in understanding. He gave Mason his phone number in case the boy changed his mind or needed help. Then Mason slipped out of the diner, vanishing as quietly as he'd appeared. Tom clutched the map, heart pounding. The next step was clear. He had to verify the farmhouse, find a way to get those kids out without spooking Carrie into running. He returned to the precinct and informed Angela of the development. She insisted on going with him to scope out the location. Officially, they didn't have a warrant, but given the suspicion of child endangerment, a quiet reconnaissance might be enough to secure one. Late one night, they drove out to the rural roads of Oregon. The journey took them through winding lanes and thick pine forests, with only the moon illuminating their path. Tom followed Mason's sketch, eventually parking near a secluded dirt track. They continued on foot, cautious. At last, they spotted a farmhouse in a clearing. No visible mailbox, no modern power lines. A faint glow spilled from one window. Tom and Angela crept closer, hearts pounding. Through binoculars, they saw a teenage girl, possibly Marie, carrying a bucket of water from a nearby pump. She looked tired, withdrawn. 2 younger kids trailed her, as if uncertain what to do. Tom's gut twisted. This was his niece, the child he thought had been adopted into a loving home. Before they could gather more intel, a man with a rifle emerged from the house, scanning the yard as though on patrol. Angela and Tom ducked behind a tree, hearts racing. They watched as the man called out to the kids, who obediently went back inside. Once the area seemed clear, Tom and Angela slipped away, their worst fears confirmed. Children were definitely being held there. Early the next morning, Tom briefed his captain on the situation. The captain was alarmed but advised caution. They needed probable cause to raid private property across state lines. They also had to ensure the children weren't endangered if Carrie or her guard resisted. Reluctantly, Tom agreed they had to do this by the book. Gather as much evidence as possible, secure cooperation from Oregon's local authorities, and stage a careful intervention. He felt every hour passing was a risk for those kids, especially Marie. Over the next week, Tom worked tirelessly, assembling a case with Angela's help. Mason's statement, the old Brookpine files, and Tom's personal connection to Marie formed the foundation. They coordinated with Oregon law enforcement for a joint operation. Meanwhile, Tom's anxiety soared. He worried Carrie might flee if she got wind of the investigation. He recalled Mason's words. Carrie was paranoid and had moved the kids more than once. Still, there was no choice but to do it right. A botched rescue would only jeopardize the children. On a crisp morning, Tom and a small team of Oregon officers gathered near the dirt track. They wore plain clothes and bulletproof vests. The plan was to approach with caution, present a warrant, and remove any children on the property. Tom felt his palms sweat. His eyes flickered to Angela, who gave him a steady nod. Then they advanced through the pines. Sure enough, as soon as they neared the farmhouse, the man with the rifle appeared. He froze at the sight of multiple officers, then aimed his weapon. The lead Oregon officer shouted for him to stand down. After a tense moment, the man hesitated, saw the bulletproof vests, then lowered the rifle, stepping back. The door opened. A woman with streaks of gray in her hair stood in the threshold, her face impassive. She wore a simple, faded blouse and jeans. Her gaze was surprisingly calm as she took in the group of law enforcement. "Carrie Maddox?" Tom asked, stepping forward. "We have a warrant to search the premises and remove any minors who may be in danger." Carrie's expression flickered. For a moment, Tom thought she might run or barricade herself inside. Instead, she opened the door wider. "Come in," she said coldly. "You'll see for yourselves." Inside the dimly lit living room, Tom's heart jolted at the sight of Marie. She stood near the fireplace, arms wrapped around herself. Two younger children, maybe 8 or 9, peered from behind her. They wore worn clothes and looked wary. Marie lifted her gaze to Tom, curiosity and fear mingling. She didn't appear to recognize him. Tom felt a surge of anger at how pale and thin she looked, as though she'd been living off meager resources. Carrie folded her arms. "I rescued them," she announced. "No one else cared. They would have ended up abused, neglected, or worse. I gave them a home." One of the Oregon officers began escorting the man with the rifle outside to disarm him. Carrie didn't resist, she simply watched with an air of defiance. Tom took a cautious step toward Marie. "Marie," he said softly, "I'm your Uncle Tom. I've been looking for you." Her face was a mask of confusion. Clearly, she had grown up believing she had no living relatives who wanted her. Tom fumbled in his pocket for a small photo. Him, his sister, and baby Marie. "This is you," he said, showing her. "You were just a baby then." She gazed at the photo, tears forming. Carrie interjected, voice tight. "I protected her from a system that would have swallowed her. She's better off here than in some abusive foster home." Tom's anger spiked. "You're the one who stole her from the system," he said, voice trembling with emotion. "I was told she'd been adopted. I never stopped trying to find her. You had no right." Carrie just looked at him, her eyes filled with a strange mix of sorrow and defiance. "You really think they would have given her a good life? I've seen too much, detective. I know how they fail these kids." Angela gently guided the younger children toward the door, where child services workers waited. Tom reached out to Marie, who hesitated. Slowly, she extended her hand, staring at him in a dazed sort of wonder. Carrie made no move to stop them, though her jaw tightened. She seemed to know the confrontation was lost. Officers began searching the farmhouse, uncovering documents and identity papers in a locked trunk. Tom recognized them as fakes used to hide the children's real histories. Outside, the Oregon sun shone on the small yard. The two younger kids huddled near the child services van, wide-eyed, uncertain. Marie stood beside Tom, clutching the photo he had given her. He placed a gentle arm around her shoulders. She flinched slightly, then leaned in as though some memory of family stirred. Tom turned to see Carrie standing in the doorway, her arms folded, defiance slipping into resignation. In that charged silence, Tom recalled the heartbreak of losing contact with Marie all those years ago. He felt torn between fury at Carrie for stealing Marie's childhood and a reluctant understanding that Carrie had, in her own warped way, tried to protect children from genuine harm. But she had taken it too far, crossing legal and moral lines by isolating them from the entire world. Within the hour, officers escorted Carrie into custody. She offered no resistance beyond a cold glare. The man with the rifle was also arrested, though he mumbled about believing Carrie was doing good. Marie and the other children were checked by medical personnel. Though malnourished and withdrawn, they seemed physically unharmed. Tom quietly thanked the universe that they were safe now. The immediate danger was over, yet Tom felt the weight of the aftermath. Marie hardly spoke at first. She seemed dazed by the presence of so many strangers, overwhelmed by new sights and sounds. Child Services insisted on a thorough evaluation, but Tom made it clear he wanted to assume custody if Marie was willing. "I'm her uncle," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I want her to live with me where she belongs." A wave of official paperwork and legal proceedings followed. Carrie faced charges of kidnapping, fraud, and child endangerment. The media pounced on the story of a rogue caseworker who rescued kids by hiding them away. Some lauded her as a misguided vigilante, while others condemned her as a manipulative abuser. The truth likely lay somewhere in between, but the law was clear. She had broken it, forging documents and depriving children of their legitimate rights. Marie moved in with Tom, though it was an uneasy transition. She was accustomed to a life of rigid routine and fear of the outside world. Tom's small apartment felt strange to her. She jumped at the sound of traffic, stared warily at phones and televisions, and struggled to believe she truly had a family who wanted her. Tom, patient but grieving the lost years, tried to fill the gaps in her knowledge, from how to use a cell phone to catching her up on basic school subjects. With therapy sessions and gentle support, Marie began to thaw. She started calling Tom uncle, though her tone was shy. Sometimes she clutched that old photo, the one from her infancy, as if it were a lifeline. A month passed. Carrie's trial loomed. Prosecutors built their case around forged adoption documents, the testimony of the rescued children, and the evidence found in her trunk, dozens of falsified identities. Mason, true to his word, slipped out of the city. But before he left, he sent Tom a note. "Glad you found Marie. Don't forget the rest." Indeed, the nightmares of Brookpine extended beyond just this farmhouse. Many other children were still unaccounted for. Yet at least Tom had saved Marie and the two younger siblings in Carrie's care. On the day Carrie appeared in court, Tom quietly accompanied Marie, though she wasn't called to testify. Marie trembled at the sight of Carrie in handcuffs. The older woman cast her a solemn glance across the courtroom. There was sadness there, perhaps regret, but also an unspoken conviction that she had done what she believed was necessary. Tom felt no triumph in seeing her subdued. He only felt relief that the children were no longer isolated. The hearing proceeded swiftly. Carrie's defense tried arguing that she protected children from abuse, but the judge found her methods unjustifiable. She was ordered to stand trial on multiple felony charges. In the aftermath, Tom began navigating the formal adoption process for Marie. It was an emotional journey. Marie asked about her mother, Tom's sister, and why she had never been told that her uncle was alive. Tom did his best to explain how he had believed the system's assurances. He apologized again and again for letting her slip away. Marie simply nodded, eyes downcast, struggling to process a reality so different from the narrative Carrie had fed her. Weeks turned into months. Gradually, Marie settled into a routine: therapy twice a week, an alternative school program to catch up on her education. She began to open up, asking questions about her mother's favorite songs and the city she had once lived in. She even discovered small joys like ordering pizza or playing a handheld video game. Tom watched with a mix of pride and heartbreak, knowing how much she'd missed out on. When the day of Carrie's sentencing arrived, the media coverage was intense. Child welfare reform advocates pointed to Carrie's case as evidence that the system needed better oversight, so that well-intentioned but misguided individuals couldn't take matters into their own hands. The judge handed down a significant prison sentence. Carrie's expression remained composed, though she made one final statement to the court, insisting that she truly cared about the children. Tom found no solace in her words. Even if her intentions had begun with a desire to protect kids, she'd stolen their identities and severed their ties to the outside world. That was never justifiable. At home, Marie watched news segments about Carrie's sentencing, silent and pensive. Later that night, Tom knocked on her bedroom door and found her sitting on the edge of the bed, the old Polaroid tucked under her pillow. He sat beside her. "You doing okay?" he asked gently. She shrugged. "She wasn't always cruel," Marie murmured. "She made us feel safe at first. Then it turned into not being allowed to leave." Tears glistened in her eyes. "It's so confusing." Tom put an arm around her. "It's normal to feel conflicted," he said. "She fed you lies, but she also gave you food and shelter. That doesn't erase what she did." Marie exhaled shakily, leaning against him. "I'm glad I found you," she whispered. Tom's eyes burned with tears he fought to keep back. "I'm glad too," he said softly. "We have a lot of time to make up for." Not long after, Tom approached her with something he hoped might help her process the past and look forward to a future of her own choosing. He handed her a simple notebook and opened it to the first page, where he had taped Mason's hand-drawn map of the farmhouse route. Next to it, Tom had written in blue ink, "This one found me." It was a reference to Mason's cryptic note about not forgetting the rest, and also a reminder of how Marie, despite everything, had been found at last. Marie stared at the map, then at the note, a faint smile curving her lips. For the first time since Tom brought her home, a glimmer of genuine warmth lit her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice subdued but full of feeling. He nodded, relieved beyond measure to see that flicker of happiness in her. They had a long road ahead. Adjustments to normal teenage life, therapy to handle the trauma, a legal adoption process. But they had each other. In the subsequent months, Tom worked with Angela and the department to reopen files of other children who went missing after Brookpine's closure. Efforts to track them down accelerated, now backed by a public outcry over Carrie's actions. Tom kept one ear out for any sign of Mason, hoping the boy found some peace. Meanwhile, Marie grew more comfortable. She started high school classes, formed tentative friendships. She discovered a passion for drawing, filling the notebook Tom gave her with sketches, some joyful, others reflecting the darker memories she needed to exorcise. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Tom returned home to find Marie in the living room, rummaging through an old box of family photos he'd finally dug out of storage. She held a snapshot of Tom with his sister, Marie's mother, taken at a beach long ago. Marie glanced up, tears in her eyes, but there was a small smile on her face. "I wish I could have known her," she whispered. Tom sat beside her, his own throat tight. "She would have loved you to bits," he said, voice quavering. "You're so much like her, strong, curious, caring." They spent the rest of the evening looking through photos, sharing stories. By the end, Marie's mood was lighter. She slipped the Polaroid from the farmhouse into a new scrapbook she'd started, interspersing it with pictures of Tom's old family gatherings and her recent life experiences. Her first day at her new school, her first holiday with Tom. Each page told a story of transformation, from isolation to belonging. Although the road was still uncertain, Tom felt they were healing together. He had found Marie. He had helped shut down Carrie's illicit operation. The weight of guilt he'd carried for years began to lift, replaced by a fierce determination to be the guardian Marie deserved. The nightmares of the farmhouse, the hush of hidden children, these memories lingered but no longer controlled them. Outside, as autumn leaves turned golden, Tom and Marie walked together in the crisp air, her hand in his as they navigated a busy street of the city. She marveled at shop windows, the swirl of people heading home from work, the hum of traffic. To her, it was still a wondrous new world. To Tom, it was a reminder of the normal life she had been denied for too long. That night, after dinner, they sat on the couch watching a movie. Marie dozed off halfway through, head resting on Tom's shoulder. He let the credits roll, glancing down at her peaceful face, gratitude filling his heart. Time passed, and eventually Tom's formal guardianship of Marie was approved. An official adoption hearing took place in a small courtroom, where the judge commended Tom for his perseverance in rescuing her. Marie wore a modest dress and clutched his hand tightly as they stood before the bench. Tears glistened in her eyes when the judge pronounced the adoption official, sealing a new chapter in both their lives. Afterward, Tom took her out to celebrate. They picked up a modest cake, shared it at home, snapping a Polaroid selfie to mark the occasion. Marie laughed quietly as the photograph developed. She scrawled on the bottom margin, "Finally a family, Marie and Uncle Tom." It was a simple but powerful statement. Looking at it, Tom felt an overwhelming mix of joy and relief. The old Polaroid that sparked this entire journey had led to a new one, capturing a moment of genuine hope. In the days that followed, Tom guided Marie through ordinary teenage milestones, doctor's visits, meeting new friends, picking out clothes at the mall. She often expressed amazement at how big the world was, how many choices she had. Sometimes she got overwhelmed, needing breaks to cope with the barrage of stimuli. Tom gave her space, always ready with a reassuring word or a steady arm around her shoulders. Though the farmhouse ordeal remained a dark memory, it no longer defined Marie's reality. Carrie's fate was sealed with a long prison sentence. The two younger children found in the farmhouse were placed with caring families. Investigations continued to locate other missing kids from Brookpine's questionable placements. Change within child services was slow, but Tom's case drew enough media attention to prompt some reforms. The old files were reopened, shining a light on children who had been untraceable for years. As for Mason, he never resurfaced publicly, but Tom sometimes heard rumors of a young man traveling the back roads, quietly helping runaway teens. It seemed Mason had dedicated himself to ensuring no kid fell through the cracks again. Tom respected him for that. He hoped that one day Mason might find a stable life of his own, free from the ghosts of Brookpine. In that sense, the story ended not with a triumphant parade but with the steady hum of everyday life. Tom and Marie had their struggles, moments of tension or tears, but they faced them together. On Marie's 16th birthday, Tom organized a small gathering, just a few of her new friends, Angela from the precinct, and a cousin Marie had never met. They cut cake in Tom's modest living room, laughter and warmth filling the space. Underneath the chatter, Marie approached Tom, her eyes bright. "Thank you," she said softly, voice trembling with gratitude. "For not giving up on me." He embraced her, words failing. In that moment he realized how precious their bond had become. Through betrayal and secrecy, they had found a new kind of family, forging trust where there had once been emptiness. When the party ended and Tom began cleaning up, he found Marie's scrapbook open on the coffee table. The final page showcased a small map drawn in blue ink, reminiscent of Mason's original route to the farmhouse. Next to it, Marie had written, "This one found me." Tom smiled sadly, recalling the day he first laid eyes on that Polaroid. So much had changed since then. Now each day brought new possibilities for Marie: school dances, summer camps, college aspirations. She was free to shape her own life. Late that night, Tom and Marie sat by the window, watching the moon rise over the city. She said quietly, "I'm still scared sometimes, like I'll wake up and be back at that farmhouse." Tom squeezed her hand. "That won't happen," he said firmly. "You're here and you have a whole world ahead of you. We'll face those fears together." She nodded, leaning her head on his shoulder. Outside, car headlights flickered by, and the steady hum of city life provided a comforting background. Tom closed his eyes, realizing that for all the heartbreak, they had found a measure of peace. The journey continued, but they were no longer alone. In place of locked doors and stolen identities, there was choice, love, and the kind of belonging that only a real family could provide. In a quiet voice, Marie said, "Thank you for watching," as if speaking to an unseen audience, then gave a small laugh at herself. Tom chuckled, ruffling her hair. She grinned and added, "And if you believe the truth should always come to light, be sure to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching." It was a playful echo of the day they finally uncovered what happened at Brookpine, a reminder that their story had captured attention far beyond their own circle. Tom hugged her gently, grateful to see her spirit coming alive. They stayed there a while, content in the soft glow of the lamp, each comforted by the other's presence. The farmhouse and its hidden children no longer belonged to the shadows. Marie was free, and in that final acceptance lay the promise of a better tomorrow.